Hi everybody, my name is Yvonne and I should be live. So please, if you are watching with us, please let me know in the chat where you are from. That lets me know that you can hear me. I see that my little voice meter is working, and so we should be doing pretty well. Let's see who's out there already. And so I'm just gonna pop up my chat and see who's out there. Let's see. All right, I see that we already have Charlene. We have some friends from Michigan. Let's see, it says Searfoss. Hi, everybody. So Gloria is with us from Texas. Welcome, everybody, to the Jelly Roll Club. Today we are finishing up our jacket series for the sweatshirt jacket in 2 weeks. So on the, let me see, on the calendar. On October 26th, I'm going to start the bog jacket, which is a jacket that you make just using an old quilt. You do need a decently sized one, like a full-size quilt if you want to make that one. And there is going to be no pattern needed because you just take your measurements, a big rectangle, and you'll be able to make some cuts in it and then sew it back together. And so it makes the sleeves, it makes the back. You're not going to need any pattern at all, and that's called the bog coat, and it's for a longer winter coat. So we're going to be working on that on October 26th. But today we are finishing up our jacket, and so as you can see in the back, I did one for my granddaughter already. And this is just plain sweatshirt jacket and jelly roll strips. I went ahead and I finished it with binding on the outside. I did normal binding around the neck. And then I did a slightly wider binding across the bottom. All right, so let me show you my other jacket that I've been working on. And this one is for my daughter. You need to make the jacket so that it is at least one size bigger than the finished jacket. I'll just show you the view so you can see. So this is the jacket that I've been working on for my daughter. And the first thing that I'm doing, just so you can see, is I'm adding, I don't know if you guys can see that, I'm adding bias binding to the inside to kind of cover the seams because I don't want to see that, and I'm going to do that to all of the inside. Then the next thing that I'm doing is I'm adding quilt binding, just like you normally would sew it on the front and flip it over to the back and then hand stitch it down. That's what I've been doing to this one. So I'm almost done with this, and then when I am finished adding that binding that I've stitched to one side, if you notice, I've just stitched it to one side, flipped it over to the back, and I'm going to hand sew all of that down. I can machine sew that, but I think it looks prettier when it's hand sewn. And so that's how you add binding to this. You just have to put it on there on the front, stitch it all the way around through the neckline like this. And then once you are done stitching up each side and around the neckline, then I'm going to come back and add a banding to the bottom. Now, if you try on your jacket at this point and your jacket is not long enough at this point, you could add a slightly wider band like this across the bottom, and you could just attach batting by zigzagging it to this very edge, just a narrow zigzag, add some batting, and then cover that with fabric. You can even stitch this, do a 1/4 inch and flip it over and then trim it off in case you want to make it longer on the bottom. So I have not added the bottom to this one because I'm waiting for my daughter to try it on once I do the binding. And if it needs a little bit of length, I can go ahead and add a little bit of length. But the sleeves are done. As you can see, I added binding to those sleeves. And so now if she flips it over, she has a little bit of a cuff as well. And so that's how I finished this jacket. But let's talk about the one we're working on today, which is a lined jacket. This one's unlined. It's just the sweatshirt flipped around. You move this out of the way. And today I'm going to show you how to line a jacket, right? Move this out of the way. All right, so the very first thing that you're going to need is if you're going to add lining, this is my jacket that I'm lining, is you're going to need to make it larger by at least one full size in order to add lining to the inside. So what I did with this is I took all of my pieces, just like we did the sweatshirt, but I built I kind of laid it out. If you notice, I did not add more to the shoulders, but I did go ahead and add quite a bit of width. I added about 1 inch over here. I wanted it longer, so I added 2 inches across the bottom, and then I added about 2 more inches across the front. So I added this right here. That's how much I increased my sweatshirt by. And so let me just show you what that looks like. So if you take this and you look at it from the front, you can see that I added this much to my shirt because I can add this sweatshirt piece to here and it fits right inside there. So I added all of this. And the reason I did that and over here because I wanted to add a lining. Okay, so in order to add a lining, you're going to make your 3 pieces like you normally do. So you have a front piece for the left, a front piece for the right, and then you have the piece for the back. And so for me, I've got them all ready to go, and I've got them pinned at the shoulders. So once I pin them at the shoulders, I matched all of my pieces and I trim them to fit. So if you notice, when I match them here, they fit exact. When I match them here, they fit exact because I trimmed all of these pieces. So once I did all of the quilting on it and all of the piecing, I went ahead and trimmed it all. And so you're just going to want to make sure that you get all of that stuff trimmed. Now, if I wanted to, I could zigzag these edges, but I'm not going to because this is going to get a lining. All right, so now that I'm here and I have all my pieces, I'm going to get my lining, which is completely washed and dried in hot water. I'm using 2 yards of lining for a large jacket. The sweatshirt that I started with was a large, so this is technically now an extra large. So I have 1 yard of fabric here that's been washed and dried on high, and then I have pressed it. There's no starch. I don't need starch for this process. So now I'm going to take one of my pieces. It doesn't matter which one, the left or the right, because these are the same. If you lay them on top of each other, these are identical because I've trimmed it all. So these are exactly the same size. Doesn't matter which direction. I'm going to take 1 yard of fabric, and I can either leave it like this with the nice sides to the outside and the wrong sides to the inside. It doesn't matter because I'm going to make one of each. So I'm going to lay this here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin one of these to this, and I'm going to cut it out. Now I'm probably going to flip it to this side just because I want to make sure that my selvage is straight because I'm trying to make sure that I have straight of grain. All right, smooth it with your hands really, really well. Use a nice flat surface. I have a folding table for all of this. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up as close to that selvage, but not touching it. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save this section here so that I can do some jelly roll strips or binding if I want to. All right, so now that I have it, I'm going to go ahead and pop a few pins in there, not a lot, just to keep it from moving around, and I'm going to cut this out. And I need 1 piece for the left and 1 piece for the right. That's why these are lined up like this. If you notice, you can either put right sides together or wrong sides together, but that'll give you mirror images. I'm just going to stick a couple of pins just to keep it from moving. Doesn't have to be too fussy. And don't be afraid to work on this. I know it looks a little bit complicated, but if you break it down into its steps, it's actually not that bad. All right, so now I'm just going to take and I'm going to cut this out. Move that out of the way. And I'm leaving just a tiny smidge bigger, not much. I just need to be able to see it. If you want to rotary cut this, you certainly can, but I don't need to. And then I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to come up this side. And so I'm using my quilted panel as my pattern. Now, one of the things I've decided, because I like how this fits and I like the size of this jacket, is that I'm going to take a piece of muslin and I'm going to make a pattern for a future jacket. So I'll be able to cut out a jacket using this exact pattern and not have to use a sweatshirt from this point forward. So if you want to make yourself a pattern, this is a great time to do it. I'm also going to be releasing later on this year a pattern that has a hooded jacket. So for those of you who want a hoodie, a winter hoodie, I will be releasing a hood pattern later on this winter. So I'm going to have to do some work on the computer to get that done. All right. There we go. Does anybody have any questions so far in the chat that they would like to ask? Let's see what's going on here. All right, so let me see who we have. Oh, so far I don't see any questions. Gloria's working on a hexagon EPP. Good for you. Once I retire, I think I'm going to work on that. Not right now. I love handwork. I just don't have time. All right, so let's go ahead and get that done. And I'm going to do the same thing to the back. I'm just going to cut one piece out. Instead of folding it in half, it's just going to be single. I'm going to put these in my scrap bin. And I have two pieces, just like this. And when I pull this off, I now have a left and a right. And they're mirror images like this. And they look slightly larger, just like that. So now I have a left and a right. And then now I need to cut the back out. So now that I have these two, I'm just going to set them aside for a second. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. I have one more yard of fabric. Depending on the size shirt you wear, you may need 2.5 yards to do this process. But I am using 2 yards of fabric because I'm not going to put lining in the sleeves because it's going to be way too hot. I don't know about you guys, but I am suffering from my own personal summer, and I do not want to put lining in the sleeves just because it's going to be way too hot. Okay, for the back part, I'm doing single thickness. I'm spreading it out just like this. And I'm going to have a nice little amount left over. And I'm just making sure that it's all straight of grain. And then I'm just going to start cutting. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm going to come in from the side. And this one, it doesn't matter if you put it face up or face down. All right. And so once I get it all the way around, I'm just going to rotate this. I find that working on a plastic folding table is one of the easiest things to do when you're working with big quilt pieces, if you're binding a quilt, anything like that, because your stuff slides around easy. I also like to use pool noodles in order to baste my quilts, and so this is very handy dandy. So if you don't have a folding table, it's the best way to do all this kind of work without hurting your back or using your entire dining room table so that your family doesn't have anywhere to eat, because that's always sad. All right, does anybody have any questions so far that you need me to answer? To make the jacket that is ankle length, my suggestion would be to do just like this method I have right here, but you're going to need to do full panels. So when we make the bog jacket, I'm going to give you measurements to make it out of a single quilt. And then I will show you how to make it, because the bog jacket is going to be calf length, and so it won't be that hard for you to extend it further. If you're making an ankle length jacket, though, it's going to take, especially if you're doing lining fabric, you may need to do a sheet for the lining if you're doing a all the way down, or use 120 if you don't want a bunch of seams in your jacket. But we will get to that when we work on the bog coat. If you want a long ankle length coat, which that sounds delightful, especially in really cold weather. All right, almost there. Let me trim. I almost feel like I need electric scissors after all this. But I'm trying not to buy any more unnecessary tools. I already have too many. All right, all of this now goes away in my scrap pile. And I'm going to just check it to make sure I don't have any wrinkles in it, which I do. Do you see that? So I'm just going to check it. Make sure there's not a bunch of wrinkles. And then I'm going to flip it back over and just double check. And I'm going to trim just a tiny bit. I don't know if you can see that off this side. So now that I have it, and it looks pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and put all of these pieces together. I'm going to sew the outside together of the jacket and then the lining before I join both of them. Let me just nibble that. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin my lining together. So I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to add the left and the right. And I'm going to sew it on the shoulders. So first I'm going to put this one and line it up like this and pin it. And then I'm going to sew just the shoulders. And just like this. Now this is right sides together. Just like that. Now I'm going to do the same thing to this shoulder. Again, right sides together. And you're just matching it up. And I use pins for this because if you don't, this just slides around and you're going to regret your decisions if you don't pin this. I've tried doing the no pin method and it just doesn't work out. If you have any extra, you're going to pin it the other way. Okay. Just like that. All right, now I'm going to come over to the machine and I'm going to sew this. And I'm also going to sew the jacket. And I'm using a very generous 1/4 inch seam. I don't want a teeny tiny seam. So same thing with the back. Like this. Thanks, Miss Joyce, for telling people. So if you like my videos, please hit the like and share these videos with your friends, because that enables other people like you to discover this channel. This channel is an education channel. I am a teacher by trade, and so I provide all of this instruction free of charge to you, and all of my pattern handouts are free of charge to you. I know other quilters that sell their stuff, and I don't blame them because it's a lot of work, but I just do it because I am trying to keep this wonderful craft alive And I want to encourage more young people to sew. And so I am trying to keep this hobby alive for future generations just because I think it's important to have a hobby you enjoy. It's nice to be able to mend your own clothes, even make some new things that are cute just for you. All right, now that I have all of this, I have the jacket pieces pinned at the shoulders, right sides together. I have the lining pieces pinned right sides together. I'm going to go over and I'm going to go ahead and sew this. I will be using a serger when I do my bog coat. I have to get it cleaned and repaired, but I will be doing that. All right, so let's come over here. Let's move this hanger out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and sew. Can you guys see my sewing machine? You should be able to see it nice and clear since I now have a new camera set up for my, yeah. All right, so here I come. I'm using the same color thread as my jacket. And I'm going to lower my stitch length for this to 2.0. I just want it nice and tight. I'm also going to, like I said, more than 1/4 of an inch. So this is a very generous 1/4 of an inch seam. And I'm going to come in here like this. And as you can see, I'm using a 1/4 inch foot, so I'm adding just enough. I'm going to come right here. When I get to the neck piece and I've almost sewn off, I'm going to back stitch it just to keep my stuff from unraveling. So in normal quilting, you don't back stitch, but when you're sewing garments, I definitely like to back stitch at the beginning and the end. So back stitch right there and just keep sewing. So I'm sewing the other shoulder now. And I'm making sure that this is stitched all the way across. And now I'm going to stitch the jacket across the shoulders. And I'm just going to keep on going, and I'm going to back stitch it as well. Make sure you put a 90-14 needle in your machine and that it is nice and fresh when you start doing this, because a dull needle makes for challenging work. And don't push it because your needle can flex and you can really damage your bobbin case doing this kind of stuff. So just take it slow, just like I do. Back tack and you should be fine. All right, so let me go ahead and go one more shoulder. And go just like this. And so now that I'm getting ready, I can go a little faster because I'm getting ready to go down the straightaway. So I'm just pulling those pins and I'm getting to the other end. And I'm going to pull that and back stitch it just like that. And now we're ready for the next step. All right, let me come over here so you guys can see what I have. All right. So now that I'm over here, let me pull all of this stuff over to the table so you guys can see what I've got going on. Now my little leader ender. And I'm going to go ahead and just break all these threads. Just like this. All right. You have the jacket now that looks like this. It looks like a vest with open sides. And you have the lining. So we're going to lay it down with this lining. I'm going to press it. And one of the things that you definitely want to do is when you're pressing this is use a Teflon pressing pad, because you can really melt your batting. So I'm just going to take, it doesn't have to be to the left or to the right, you can do it open, but I'm just taking my fingers and I'm opening up that seam. And I'm going to flatten that shoulder seam just like this. If you want to add a little bit of starch, you can. So with a tiny bit of faultless starch, just to keep it from wiggling around on you. I don't want to add too much starch though, because I want this to be flexible. Because when I start pinning it and flipping it so that it's joining to the inside, I don't want an excessive amount of starch. All right, so that's one shoulder. And now I'm going to take the other shoulder and do the same thing. Just going to kind of finger press it with my nails. If I want to give it a tiny bit of starch, just hit it with a little bit, not a lot. And then come in with the iron and just give it a little press. Just so that shoulder seam is nice and flat. Okay, so now that I have it, move that back out of the way. I'm going to take, and I want to press these seams as well. So I'm going to press them open. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to press these seams so that these are flat. Same thing. I'm not using starch this time, but I do want that seam flat. So I'm going to put a Teflon pressing cloth on top, just so that I can do that without melting anything that I'm using. So just like that, look, it flattens it out. And if it's stubborn on you, just hit it with the tip of the iron like that. Now I'm going to do the other shoulder. Same thing. Just kind of take your finger and dig in there. Like I said, it's a nice big seam. I'm going to take this and lay it in there. And then bring my iron over and do the same thing. Just give it a hot press. Joy, you are correct. If you want to know everything there is about this jacket, just go back to the beginning to episode 1. There's a follow-up video, and then there's episode 3. This is technically episode 4. So if you want to see all of the parts, you need to go all the way to the beginning. All right, so now that I have these two parts, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay this lining like this. And I can go ahead and put this lining inside my jacket just like this, and I'm going to pin it at the shoulders. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this lining, and now when I attach my sleeves and my binding, my lining will now be to the inside, and I'm going to have this beautiful finished looking lining. I'm not going to sew these closed until after, because what I'm going to do once I sew this outer jacket together, I'm going to fold this in half and cover that seam, and I'll be able to see no seams at all once I'm done with this. Let me just go over here, and you're going to pin that right in this junction, just like that. And this will make a beautiful finished inside. If you want to use something more slippery, like some lining fabrics, if you want to use sateen, you may want to use sateen, because cotton can make it to where it's not easy to slide in and out. This is like a combed cotton that I'm using. And I'm just going to attach it like this and add lining to the shoulder. And I'm just smoothing it out completely. Let me move this out of the way. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a whole lining, and I don't want all the quilting lines to show. I literally just want it to fit the entire side. And so see my shoulders? When I have my shoulders now, they're going to be completely smooth and you won't be able to see the seams. All right. Pin this shoulder so that it's nice and snug in there. Same with this one. And now all that's left to do for this jacket is literally, I'm going to start by sewing across here and anchoring the shoulders. And I'm going to sew top stitch on either side. So I'm going to come up here to the shoulder and I'm just going to top stitch on both sides right there so that my shoulder is anchored right here. So let me go over to the machine so you guys can see that. Be careful with your pins. Make sure you're not sewing over any of them. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to sew. You can also stitch in the ditch, but I'm just going to sew very short stitches on either side. It'll also give your shoulders a little bit of structure so that your shoulders on your jacket are not slouching. Okay, let me move this pin. And if you notice, I just stitched on one side, and now I'm going to flip this around and stitch on the other. So without breaking a thread, I'm going to flip this around, come down 1 or 2 stitches right there, rotate this around, and come down the other side. You kind of have to wrestle with your jacket inside. If you have a small harp on your machine, you kind of have to wrestle with your jacket a little bit. And so I'm going to push that down so you can see it. And that'll give it that really fancy top stitched, finished look. That I want for my jacket. When I get there, I'm just going to give it a quick little back stitch. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other shoulder. So let me pull all of this out of my machine. And try the other side. All right, you may have to take a minute to kind of reconnect your jacket. But I'm just coming in here. And I'm going to make sure that it's nice and flat with my hands. And I'm going to start in there. You may want to push it down with your fingers when you first get it up under your presser foot, because sometimes your presser foot doesn't want to go when there's that much thickness. And then you're just going to make sure that it's nice and taut. Shove that out of the way. And then as you get close, then you can pull your pin and swing it around. And now that I have my lining in there, I can lightly baste it with basting spray. I can use a little bit of fusible web. I can use a glue stick, but I just want to anchor that lining in place so that when I attach the entire jacket together, when I sew the whole thing together, that I'm not going to be shifting my lining around. All right. All right. And so this is great. Does anybody else have any other questions, things they've been concerned about, problems they ran into that they want me to help you work you through the issue? But this is not too bad. I know some people said that they were a little bit nervous about this, but don't be nervous. I promise you it's not bad. All right. Now you see what I have here. I have my jacket. It is now stitched on the shoulders, 2 seams. Stitched on this shoulder, 2 seams. And now I'm going to show you, see if you can see me. Now I have my jacket and I can get my jacket fitted to me. So I'm going to make sure that my jacket now is fitted to my body. So before I do anything else, I'm going to make sure that I have what I need. And this has an overlap. I like how it looks. This is where I'm going to add my buttons at the end, my closures. So I like how this looks. I can always flip it over because it has a lining. If I decided not to wear, not to put buttons, I could always flip it over and stitch it down like a lapel. So this gives you flexibility. So I can either leave it like this or I can press it down so that this opens and I can wear it as an open jacket. Okay, so let me show you now what's next, and then we're almost done with this. All right. So now that I have it, I'm going to separate the lining. I'm going to put it to the inside like this, and I'm going to pin it out of the way, just in this area, right? Because when I sew this together, I want to make sure that I can come back and fold this over this seam right here, okay? So now that I have it, I can go ahead and put the jacket together. And so this looks like it's going to be a nice lining. I like how this looks. All right, so the other projects that we have coming up are the big bog jacket. We have a sew along coming up. I'm working on a couple of new jelly roll patterns for quilts. And then I have a whole host of little tiny projects for the holidays. Some new boxy pouches, some medium stockings. I've done little stockings before, but I'm going to do medium stockings. All right, so now that I have all of this, and this is the correct size, I'm just going to smooth it, right? And then I can sew this together. So this is lined. And now I can start sewing my jacket together. I've got all of the pieces, so in order to sew it, I'm going to take this and I'm going to attach a sleeve. So my sleeves are ready to go. I'm just going to find the center. And I'm going to sew that sleeve right there. Now, if you want to peel that back, you can, and attach that without attaching it to the lining. And the reason you might want to do that is so that when you sew this and you finish that seam, you can bring this over it, flip it over, and then stitch it down to give it a finished seam. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here to my machine, and I'm going to sew this on. So I'm going to attach it. Pin it in the middle, sew it one direction, pin it in the middle, sew it the other direction. So let's get over to the machine. Do we need to make large pieces for the edges of the jacket? No, you don't have to. Everything is up to you. You don't have to do anything. So you can make your jacket however you want to make it. You can make cuffed sleeves, uncuffed sleeves, however you want to do it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pin this and give her a sew. And I've got my sleeve on the bottom. I've got my jacket on top, and I'm kind of pulling the lining away from me. Okay. So it's easier to sew with the curve underneath you, and so this is why I do it this way. I'm moving the lining out of the way. I'm pushing all of that other stuff out of the way. And I'm pulling it just like this. So once I get it there, I'm going to finish my sleeve, and then I'm going to back tack it, and I'm going to do the other side. So now I'm going to sew the sleeve going the opposite direction. Pin it right here, because once I sew this together, I'm going to bring this lining back over, and I'll be able to lay that over that edge, fold it ever so slightly, and if I wanted to, I could stitch it down. And so that's why I want that lining. So now I could take it and flip it down ever so slightly, come across here, and just stitch that down. So if you notice, it's a tiny bit bigger than what I need, and I'm just going to flip so that when I sew these sides together, then I'll have something so that I can just stitch it down. I can close it by hand or by machine, and I'll be able to just have a finished lined inside. Okay, friends, that was it. There's not a whole lot more to this. So if you want to make your own jacket and you want it lined, the only thing that I have to do now is finish attaching that sleeve just like we did the other ones. I'm going to go ahead and find my hanger. So the only thing that's left for me to do is attach both of these sleeves across the shoulder. Then I'm going to take this sleeve out here, and then I'm going to close it all the way down the side, and then that will be done. And so, friends, I'm not going to keep you any longer. It is 6:41. So I'm going to be working on this, and I will post a lot of detailed photos on my Facebook page. But the only thing that I'm doing now is I'm going to close these sides on both sides, and that way when I open my jacket on the inside, I'll be able to see this beautiful lining fabric on the inside. And I like how this is turning out. This is probably going to be my favorite winter jacket until we make the bog coat. The solid blue next to the sleeve. This is the sweatshirt. If you see that, that's just the sweatshirt material. So when I started this one, I started it just like I did this one, using a sweatshirt. This has a sweatshirt on the inside. And then what I have left, because I'm not lining the sleeves, is I have these pieces left, which I've decided I think I'm going to make a vest. So because I have this back left over to my sweatshirt, and then I have the two panels, the front left and the front right to my sweatshirt, I think I'm going to make a vest. What do you guys think? My Facebook page is at Jelly Roll Club, so if you want to find us, that's where we are. My website is www.jellyrollclub, so everything is on my website, and these are always available to rewatch at any time. Let me show you what's on my website so you guys can see. And I'm going to take you to my page, so let me go ahead and share my desktop really quick so you guys can find everything. So I'm just going to share my desktop. So my website is www.jellyrollclub.com. I am posting stuff for the scrap challenge that's coming up in there. I have this series called Repurpose Quilts. You can see all of the videos, the supply list, and all of the things that go with it. And then you can also see the dates for the upcoming bog jacket. There's also the current block of the month, the current quilt I'm working on, which is called Krabby Patty. But I have things like sewing for little people, so I did an apron. If you want to do the pillow of the month, all of that stuff is linked in there. We're going to be working on holiday quilts and holiday quilting, so that's coming up. If you missed Fruits of the Spirit, there's an entire quilt series. And then if you look on the side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 20 projects you can work on, like this one right here, like Ring of Fire. And it has multi-sizes. So if you're interested in just going through the website and finding stuff to do, there's stuff to do in there. And then you can also go to Facebook. And Facebook is at Jelly Roll Club. And so you're just going to do the little @ symbol, and you're going to see it looks like this. And it says Jelly Roll Club and everything that's in there. Now, I also have a group page if you guys want to be in a meeting room. There's something called the Jelly Roll Club meeting room, and that's for people to ask each other questions. So if you have questions that you want to ask each other, you can go in there and sew with us. But either way, Join me anytime you want. This channel is free. And so I just want you to learn how to quilt, and I want you to share it with others. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can drop the questions in the chat, and I am ready, ready, ready. Helen wants to know what a bog coat is. Helen, if you go to the internet, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now so you guys can see. Somebody wants to know what a bog coat is. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop so you can see. And it is an old garment that is literally just here. Let me share my desktop. Can you guys see that? So a bog coat is a long jacket. It's kind of like this one. This lady made a bog coat, and she made a single long jacket. And so a bog coat is made from a single piece of fabric, but we're going to make a quilted boggy jacket. And so I'm going to do all of the math for you, and then we're going to be doing all of the sewing to make ourselves this kind of medieval coat, and it looks like this. It's literally just one giant piece of fabric, and I'm going to show you how to fold it and sew it, and I'm going to have a chart so you can measure yourself and make your own bog jacket. So I hope that makes sense what I'm doing. Please let me know if you have any questions. Give it a like and a thumbs up. I appreciate your support. That really helps me to provide you with free content. And so just let me know what you need. All right, everybody, have a great week. I will see you guys next Sunday, and we're going to be working on, let me see, what's the calendar say? I think it says Krabby Patty. And then on the 23rd of October, in 2 weeks, we're going to start with the bog coat. All right, everybody, I'm going to post pictures on the Facebook page. Have a great one. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good one. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.